Hi everybody, welcome to Retro Station 1989. I'm Commander Dan, the lone human inhabitant aboard the Retro Station 1989. With me is our AI Margot, Cambot Jr. working the cameras, and Splat is around. Again, still on hiatus because of all the ruckus that he caused. You can check back a couple episodes to see what I'm talking about. Alright, so this is week 2 of our Spider Fest, and today we're talking about one of my favorite games to talk about. And we'll go into whether or not it has a license to play. Alright, so, things are coming back to normal basically. I've been kicking back and playing through my Spider-Man catalog. I've been thinking about it a lot. And this one that we're talking about, and we're going to talk about games coming in the future when we talk about Spider-Man again next year. We'll be talking about games that people may have missed, We're not talking about the big ones, like the new Spider-Man game for PS4. Honestly, that one and Miles Morales are my two favorite Spider-Man games of all time. We talked about Spider-Man for the Nintendo 64 last time, and while Spider-Man 2 Enter Electro for the PS1, to me, is top-notch of that generation's gaming. I figure we should talk about something that most Spider fans may know about, but the rest of you may not. So, let's dive in. Cambot Jr., take it away. If you're a Mario fan, you know his story revolves around he and his compatriots saving a realm from a dragon turtle called King Bowser. You can add gameplay elements, story elements, or characters, but there will be a Mario, there'll be a Bowser. You can take a lot away from the game, but so long as Mario and Bowser are there, you have a Mario game. If you're a Spider fan, especially one of a certain age, you know that Spidey's games just have to have Spider-Man to make most of us happy, but video game creators seem to be pushed by the Marvel Comics group to make a game about whatever is popping in the comic scene, not necessarily storylines, but whatever's big in comics at the time. For example, Quest Probe. It was a graphic text adventure series featuring the major Marvel characters and was a joint production between Adventure Games and Marvel. And of course, Spidey got his turn to be in the limelight, among the other two of the trilogy, like the Hulk, and instead of the full Fantastic Four, you had Human Torch and the Thing. But it was what Marvel was doing in the comics. They, in fact, created a comic miniseries about Quest Probe. Spidey had a TV show in the 70s, and before Quest Probe, the first video game outing was this engaging but simple arcade experience. Spider-Man for the Atari 2600 by Parker Brothers had basic gameplay based loosely on Crazy Climber from the arcade. But the best part of that whole game at all? The commercial. Check this out.
Blow this town to smithereens! Time bombs! Try to get up there in time, Spider-Man!
Watch me cut my web, Goblin.
Watch yourself fall, Silk Slinger!
Gotta stop the bombs in time.
If I don't get you, webhead, my diagnostics will!
Holy Hannah!
And you're running out of fluid!
Is this more action than even Spider-Man could handle?
Spider-Man, a video game from Parker Brothers, the ones to beat.
That was special. That was like the definition of what I would call special. That's a very special episode of special. That is a specialist's level of special. Let's just take a look at the Green Goblin again. That mask is pornographic. I'm just going to say it. Spider-Man's cool, but Green Goblin, do something about that nose, Chief. You're going to get canceled for sure. For sure. Now, Spidey did an action game, an adventure game, and came back after Quest Probe in '89 with Captain America in Doctor Doom's Revenge by Paragon, which ended up being a slower-paced home computer action-adventure game. It was nice looking, but played slow. Reviews were mixed, but at the same time, Spidey was getting his first console game since 1982. And it was for the Game Boy. It was also the first game other than Tetris that I owned for the Game Boy in 1990, and I loved that game. I know it's not the greatest game ever. The Amazing Spider-Man was a side-scrolling action game with some web slinging, and when you did get used to the timing of the punching and swinging, it's a fun game, fun little actioner, and it sold itself on the merits of Todd McFarlane's run on the new Spider-Man comics, even though it bore the name of the main Spider-Man series, The Amazing Spider-Man. Comics were coming into their own again in the early 90s. Batman's '89 flick was a blockbuster, and collecting comics was becoming a real phenomenon because of certain people manipulating the market, but we won't go there here. Sega of America was beginning their first wave of big acquisitions to compete with Nintendo in America. And Spider-Man was in that wave with Spider-Man versus the Kingpin, known colloquially as Spider-Man because that's all that's on the box cover. So, And again, the cover bears the McFarlane-style Spider-Man. And the gameplay? One of my favorites in the Web Slingers video game career. Fast action, adding things like taking photos as Spider-Man of your opponents, going back to Peter's apartment to rest up. All of this stuff made it so that the game felt like an issue of Spider-Man. So it was very good. Nintendo managed to get a piece of the license with an Amazing Spider-Man 2 on the Game Boy, and because the SNES was taking off, had both an NES game, Spider-Man, Return of the Sinister Six, and Spider-Man and X-Men, two of Marvel's hottest properties in Arcade's revenge for the Super Nintendo. Received well by fans, but these games were usually lacking in one way or another. They played like the clunky home computer games, but then Acclaim, formerly LJN, I think even one of these games is an LJN game and one is an Acclaim game, decided to make a pair of games based directly on the comic book series. Separation Anxiety, that's the Separation Anxiety miniseries featuring Venom, and Maximum Carnage. Let me tell you, Spider-Mania was at its peak in America. In Japan, they also love Spider-Man in a different way. Here's their TV show, and here's some of their toys. But they got a game based on a Marvel miniseries we never got to see. That's right, they got this one, The Amazing Spider-Man Lethal Foes. It's a pretty basic game, actually. We'll review it here in just a second, but suffice to say that this one is a little different. And so to talk about this one, we're going to have to talk about not just the Super Famicom, this is a repro for the Super Nintendo, we'll have to talk about something a little weird. So you know this guy. No, not Paul Rudd, the Super Nintendo. It was in a neck-and-neck race with the Genesis in the 90s, and with a console come peripherals. In America, we had the SNES mouse, the SNES Super Scope, the Super Game Boy, and man, so many third-party controllers, you wouldn't believe it. In Japan, whoa, Nelson. They had the SNES Satellaview. It was a satellite receiver for downloading software and newsletters. They got the Nintendo Power SNES and Game Boy flash carts. I mean, they had flash carts back in the 90s. There were third-party fighting game controllers on both shores, but this is the gizmo that we're looking at today. The Barcode Battler. This device connected to the Super Famicom and used cards with barcodes to determine attacks and defense in the game Covini Wars, which is one of a bunch of super deformed giant mecha games for Super Famicom. The Barcode Battler sold modestly, and to boost its cachet, they of course leaned on licensed titles. There's a Doraemon, Lupin III, Donald Duck, and finally, the game we're talking about today, The Amazing Spider-Man Lethal Foes. That's right, this game here is a Japanese exclusive based on the Marvel comic miniseries of the same name. Now, Lethal Foes isn't just a Super Famicom game, it's also a Barcode Battler game. So let's dive into what we know about this title's little slice of Spider-Ana, and which ain't much, by the way, and let's take a look at the gameplay as well. Actually, it's hard to get more than just basic information about Epoch's titles, since I don't speak much Japanese or read it that at all. But there's footage of the Barcode Battler out there, as you can see here, and the gameplay's weird. You have to play it to get what I mean. I couldn't put my finger on how Lethal Foes plays until I saw my nephew playing with this toy, the Hyperscan. That Ben 10 game plays exactly like this title feels. Like it's a game made by toy makers, not game makers. For kids, basically. The game has multiple levels, and with the Barcode Battler 2, you could add content to the game. It was like DLC, but on cards. Let's take a look. The controls are great. Smooth but simple. It's for little kids. The timer, however, is brutal. It's like they're trying to grab quarters from you in the arcade by creating a game with timed mazes. But if you can handle that jank, you can play through and get a pretty fun Marvel experience. And it includes one of my favorite non-Spidey characters of all time, Speedball. The fights are quick, the bosses have long health bars, but it's easy to diminish their bar because Spider is a tough sumbitch. So, is it worth a play? Maybe. I mean, I got my copy for $15. Apparently, a new copy, the Famicom cart, is worth like $100. It's that rare. But it's like, I don't care how rare that Ben 10 game would be. I wouldn't spend that money for it. So, as you can see, the graphics are nice, it's colorful, it's pleasant to look at. And if you can find a translated repro cart, worth it if you get it for under $20. But there's only one question really left about The Amazing Spider-Man Lethal Foes. So, does The Amazing Spider-Man Lethal Foes have a license to play? No. No, I'm sorry, buddy. You're getting your license revoked today. This game is alright. I mean, it's a very basic game, and if you're a Spider fan, maybe grab it. If you can find somebody selling a repro for cheap, grab one. I got mine unboxed, so that made it right around 15 or 16 bucks. Worth it to me. Because I'm a Spider fan. And if you're a Spider fan, pick it up. You know, you might like it. Beware, it does not play on the Retron 5. It will play on your Super Nintendo, but on Retron 5, it just doesn't figure out the patch very well. So, take that into consideration when you're getting it as well. So, yeah, sorry. You going back on the shelf, and sorry, you don't have a license to play. You'll now gather dust, and may God have mercy on your soul there, Amazing Spider-Man. So, we are entering my favorite season of the year, Fantasy Month. No, not just Fantasy Month. Halloween. And in October, we're going to be dealing with some games and a license that's pretty great. It's a chain of horror flicks that is going to blow your mind, especially because I love this chain of horror flicks, and I'm going to bring you reviews like you never saw before. All right, everybody. No matter what I've said during this review or any other video on my channel, remember always, 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 more than anything else, to stay retro. Peace.
Get upset on the internet. You're assault adult. You're assault adult. Get upset on the internet. You're assault adult. Throwing out a hissy fit, your views ain't in the millions, and every up and comer is a threat to what you're dealing. And instead of getting better, you just spout up on your Facebook, crying on your Twitter bit about how bad your case look. In case you didn't get it yet, allow me to rephrase it. You cry more than my 4-year-old. I'm actually amazed. Like you couldn't even see the forest for the trees. The writings on the wall literally that I see. How you getting salt at a culture blowing up, man? I think there was a point where you started growing up, man. Instead of showing up, man, irrationally mad. Don't appropriate impression like the latest fashion fad. It isn't cool or funny to be acting like an edgelord. You alienate friends, push them closer to the edge more. I don't know how to say it.